Do you know if your high school had a mandatory comprehensive sex education class?
No, I don't think my high school did.
53% of females and 54% of males reported in 2015 to 2019 that they had received sex education that meets minimum standard.
The biggest misconception about sex ed is?
I don't really know. I've never thought about it that much in depth, so I don't know.
Myth: children need to reach a certain age before having the sex talk. Truth: sexual education with our children is not one big talk but a million one-minute conversations. From deep.
Why do you think sex ed is so controversial today?
I think it's controversial because, well, I forgot what I started to say earlier. Especially nowadays, I feel like a lot of people deem sex and other relationships in different ways. It's such a broad spectrum now, and not everyone is as open-minded as they could be. So I feel like that's why there's a lot of backlash. Yeah, of course.
What does the term consent mean to you? And what does it look like?
It would be the enthusiastic agreement to an activity, which would be either, it should, in my estimation, be verbal, and yes, I very much so want to do this, or very enthusiastic, clear language, or even body language, very enthusiastic head nod.
Thank you so much.
Sex education pushes propaganda onto kids. False. Correct. Action Canada says ensure high-quality sex ed should be about what science leads us and tells us to the best health and social outcomes, not beliefs, fears, and misguided opinions. Sex education encourages youth to have risky sex.
No.
Correct. It's false. According to Action Canada for Sexual Health and Rights, sex ed teaches youth how to have safe sex.
Awesome.
Was abstinency promoted in your sex education class?
Absence what?
Abstinency, like refraining from having sex.
I didn't have a sex education class. I'm from Budapest, and we didn't have a class like that there, so it's interesting you point out this question. I don't know, I realized it's a bigger deal here, sex education, and I realize it's treated differently, I feel like, here than it is in Europe. I feel like it's better here because you actually get, usually, sometimes it can be better, that you get actual information about stuff and you don't have to find it out alone by yourself. So, yeah.
Can you explain the difference between sex and gender?
The difference between sex and gender. So, sex is a biological category assigned at birth, and gender has more to do with sort of the preferences of, or the lived experience of an individual.
What was covered in your sex education class?
Condoms. Let's see, I'm trying to remember. I didn't really have a sex ed class. It was just a 1 week period of health. We covered condoms, safe sex. I'm trying to think. I really think that was it. I'm not even going to hold you.
38 states AMD. The District of Columbia mandates sex education and/or HIV education. From gutmature.org.
You think parents have the right to pull their kids from school when the material becomes quote-unquote too uncomfortable?
Sure. It depends, I guess. I don't know. My friend was homeschooled and she doesn't know anything about sex ed or anything like that, so it goes both ways, I guess.
Thousands of Massachusetts parents opted their children out of a federally funded sex education curriculum that teaches kindergartners about genitalia. From FairportEducationalAlliance.org.
What do you think the biggest misconception about sex ed is?
Oh, the biggest misconception?
Yeah.
Oh, about sex ed. It would have to be that it's weird being in the classroom with the opposite gender and talking about sex.
Thank you. Do you think parents have the right to pull their child from school when the material becomes too inappropriate?
Because I'm liberal, no. That's a good sound.
What does consent mean to you?
Consent, I think unless it's an enthusiastic yes, it's a no, and you can't consider anything else as consent.
Did your high school have a comprehensive sexual education class?
No.
According to the Sexuality and Information Council of the United States, only 38% of high schools and 14% of middle schools across the country teach all 19 topics identified as critical for sex education by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. From HarvardPolitics.com.